The Netherlands is one of the best countries in Europe for roller coasters, which is amazing considering how small it is. For reference, the Netherlands is about 10 times smaller than my home state, California. That is absolutely wild when you consider just how deep their collection of theme parks and coasters are. So in this video, I want to count down my top 15 Dutch roller coasters, and I hope you all enjoy. Before we dive in, I would like to clarify that this list is only including roller coasters I rode in the country, which are the lineups of Walibi Holland, Efteling, Toverland, and Slagharen. Therefore, a few honorable mentions that could have made the cut are Falcon at Duinrail and Formula X at Dwervelwind. With that being said, let's get things started. At the number 15 spot is Speed of Sound at Walibi Holland. Admittedly, we aren't going to be starting off on a very high note for the first few spots on this list. Speed of Sound is a classic Vekoma boomerang, but an improved one at that. It's got the modern vest restraints eliminating headbanging, it's got some theming, and it's got onboard audio. The one thing I can't look past is that it's not a smooth boomerang, so the vests only help the experience so much. Overall, not a bad ride, but not a good ride either. Number 14, Booster Bike at Toverland. This Vekoma motorbike coaster is a very unique ride, as the model can only be found at 5 parks worldwide. But I honestly understand why more weren't built. The launch at the start is pretty good, but everything else after that is kind of forceless. The turns don't really do anything, and the airtime hills do give a little bit of airtime, but it's pretty weak floater. Booster Bike looks more appealing than how it rides in my opinion. Number 13, Python at Efteling. The old Vekoma looping coasters don't have very good reputations, but Python may be one of the few exceptions. Originally opening in 1981, Python underwent a huge refurbishment in the 2010s that involved a full retrack and new trains with vest restraints. As a result, it's actually a glossy, smooth coaster, which is rather impressive given expectations. The reason it wasn't able to go any higher is because the layout is pretty dull, just your same old double loop, double corkscrew ride course. Python is certainly worth a ride when you visit Efteling, but it's not one you're going to want to do over and over again. Number 12, Dwervelwind at Toverland. Alright, now we're starting to get somewhere on this list. Dwervelwind is a Mock Rides family spinning coaster, very similar to like Turbulence at Adventureland in New York if you've ridden that. It's a super smooth, fun layout enhanced by the spinning vehicles, which weren't crazy enough to get you nauseous, but were certainly enough to make the elements feel unique. I do wish it were a bit longer, along with Turbulence at Adventureland, but other than that, it's a near-perfect family coaster. Number 11, Vogel Rok at Efteling. I knew nothing about this ride before visiting Efteling. I only recognized that giant bird making of the entrance, but I didn't know anything about the layout and manufacture. As it turns out, this is an indoor Vekoma ride that actually runs very smooth. And it's not just smooth, it's one of the best family coasters I've ridden. While not the longest experience, the dark environment, zippy layout, and soundtrack make it a super engaging experience. So don't pass up on a ride on this thing if you happen to be visiting the park. Number 10, Xpress Platform 13 at Walibi Holland. I feel like no one talks about this coaster. You'll hear from time to time how it's the outdoor version of Rock and Roller Coaster at Walt Disney World, but no one talks about how good it is and how it compares. For me, I actually prefer this ride to Rock and Roller Coaster because the spaghetti bowl of track is really cool to fly through with visibility. An underrated moment is the first launch with all these cool lighting effects that blast you into some tall inversions. Also, for an older Vekoma, it's a pretty smooth ride, and I think that really makes it for me. If it tracked rough, I'm not sure it would be anywhere near as fun as it actually is. Number 9, Vliegende Hollander at Efteling. Talk about a unique experience, because Vliegende Hollander is a Kumbak water coaster, the only one in the world. In other words, the ride experience is part boat ride, part roller coaster, and in my opinion, I think it's by far the best water coaster in the world. It's a tame experience, meaning anyone can ride it, but that's a great thing. No member of the family should be missing out on this thing, because while the coaster segment isn't very crazy, the indoor part with the theming is absolutely unbelievable. I can hardly recall what happened since there was so much going on, and because I only got to ride this thing once, but it was spectacular. Also, I enjoy getting a little wet on a hot summer day, so the coaster checks off a number of boxes. Number 8, Gold Rush at Slagharen. The only entry on this list from this small amusement park, there were 2 reasons we stopped and visited Slagharen. 1, I needed to pick up a season pass which could get me to other nearby parks like Bobbejaanland and Movie Park Germany in the same chain. 2, they happen to have one standout ride called Gold Rush that was certainly worth a 2-hour stop for. Personally, I have it as my second lowest ranked Gerstlauer Infinity coaster, just over hang time at Knott's Berry Farm, but a Gerstlauer Infinity is a Gerstlauer Infinity coaster. Overall, I did find it to be a bit short and a bit shaky, but it does excel in the forces with a small bit of airtime, hang time, and positive Gs. It really is a nice blend of forces, even if there's not a whole lot of each. So if you're driving between some of the amusement parks in northern Germany to the Netherlands, Slagharen is a pretty short detour that doesn't hurt to make, since you'll be getting a pretty good launch coaster out of it. Number 7, Baron 1898 at Efteling. After riding Preek at Heide Park, which was far and away the worst dive coaster I'd ridden, I wasn't sure what I'd think of this ride. Both are mini dive machines with short layouts and some theming, but how much theming and how much the elements popped is what I didn't know going in. Baron 1898 has 2 pre-shows, one before the ride and one on ride before you ascend the lift hill. The theming here absolutely blew me away and made this a complete experience in my opinion. While the layout is only around 100 feet longer than Creek, I think the elements of choice were way better. You have a drop straight underground, a floaty 0G roll, and even an airtime pop towards the end. Baron 1898 really impressed me, and I'd probably put it up there as one of the best dive coasters in the world. Number 6, Joris and De Draak at Efteling. The best roller coaster at this park is pretty dang close to Baron 1898. I think I'd consider them to be interchangeable because sometimes I'll be feeling Baron a little bit more and sometimes I'll be feeling Joris and De Draak a little bit more. This is a dueling GCI wood coaster that fixes every issue enthusiasts have with Lightning Racer at Hershey Park. You want airtime? You got it. You want train interaction? You got it. You want a fast-paced layout? You got it. Now, when I went on this coaster, I didn't get to experience the racing element since only one side was available, but I could acknowledge the sheer amount of crossover sections and interactivity to where it wasn't as much of an issue with me. When I inevitably get back to this park, since it is one of my favorites in Europe, I'll gladly get some more laps in on this awesome coaster. Number 5, Lost Gravity at Walibi, Holland. The first of this park's epic top 3 coasters to make the list, Lost Gravity is a very unique ride. It opened in 2016 as the first Mock Rides Big Dipper coaster, and today there's one other one in operation and 3 more under construction. You can tell a number of parks were interested in Lost Gravity, and it's for good reason. Few coaster models from other manufacturers can simulate the sensations felt on the Mock Big Dipper coaster. I'd say it feels most similar to a Gerstlauer Eurofighter, but even that is kind of stretching it. The elements are really sharp, the airtime is aggressive, and the hang time is wild. It's a coaster that mixes in a great variety of forces and has a plentiful amount of each force as well. I'd highly recommend making this one of your priorities when visiting Walibi, Holland. Number 4, Phoenix at Toverland. I've ridden many B&M wing coasters, and contrary to a lot of enthusiasts, I've loved every one I've experienced. But of them all, I think Phoenix really excels in pacing, which is something no other wing coaster by B&M can compete with. It feels like you're blasted by positive G's and then whipped through an inversion back to back on this thing. Not to mention, it's incredibly well themed, visually beautiful, and glossy smooth. Similar to Efteling, where I can hardly rank Baron 1898 and Joris and De Draak higher than one another, I feel the same about Toverland's top 2. Yes, Phoenix is great, and it might be my favorite ride in the park, but for the time being, I have another coaster here ranked just a spot higher. Number 3, Troy at Toverland. Everyone always talks about how Troy is one of the best GCIs, but I didn't really think so. I found Troy to be a bit overrated, quite honestly, but the fact that it's still my 3rd favorite Dutch roller coaster speaks to the quality of the manufacturer's rides. Compared to other GCIs, I just didn't think the airtime was that prevalent, but something it has in many wood coasters is the length. Troy is a very long ride, and that's an awesome quality to have. I appreciate how it keeps on going, and it never really gets boring until you get to the last helix. The one other drawback for me is that it is a little bit rough. I was kind of surprised. I think this is probably the roughest GCI I've been on. So overall, while I do really like this ride, I'm not totally sure why coaster enthusiasts rank it so dang high on their lists. Number 2, Goliath at Walibi, Holland. One of Intamin's original mega coasters is a ride that's been overshadowed by the new ones like Hyperion at Energylandia and Conda at Walibi, Belgium. But I was pretty impressed by this ride and would say it's like a European version of the Ride of Steel clones at Six Flags America and Six Flags Darien Lake. Coming from a person who considers Ride of Steel to be a guilty pleasure experience, I really enjoyed Goliath. The ride is basically split up into 3 halves. You got the beginning section, middle section, and end section. For me, the beginning and end are actually pretty much perfect and are some elite ride time. But that middle section, which is easily the longest section, is such a dud. The helixes are minorly forceful, which I don't mind as much, but the twisted airtime hills do literally nothing. Going in, I actually thought those twisted hills would be the best elements on the ride, and I couldn't have been more wrong. If it weren't for the middle section being such a dead spot, I don't think Goliath would have moved up on this list, but it probably would move up exponentially on my overall coasters list. With that being said, we're now left with one contender that should have been obvious from the start. Number 1 is Untamed at Walibi, Holland. To me, it wasn't even close. This is by far the best Dutch roller coaster. The jump from Goliath to Untamed is ginormous, and that's not a knock at Goliath, it just shows how incredible this RMC creation truly is. Many have called Untamed a mini Steel Vengeance, and I couldn't agree more. The airtime is unbelievably powerful, and there is so much of it. And like Steel Vengeance, it spends a lot of time in the second half weaving in and out of its support structure, and not knowing where you're heading next is an amazing feature. I feel like RMC really hit the mark with this one. I've thoroughly enjoyed every single one of their rides, but of all the mid-sized RMCs, I think Untamed is ranked the highest for me. I just don't have many bad things to say about it. So if you take anything away from this video, let it be that Untamed alone makes a trip to the Netherlands worth it in itself. The country has been blessed by some fantastic coasters over the years, which has made it a must-visit destination for roller coaster enthusiasts and theme park fans alike. So let me know how you rank your favorite Dutch coasters, and do me a favor, like this video and subscribe for more videos. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all very soon. Bye guys.